So, Christine and Louise, how has the Visions for Peace program come about? What is its origin?
Thank you, Sarah. And the origins of the Visions for Peace project are in an Arts and Humanities Research Council funded project that we began, probably about 2 years or so ago now, on a feminist international law of peace and security. And our starting point is Louise and I are both international lawyers, and we had many conversations about the fact that as international lawyers, we talk constantly around war, around violence, around conflict, but we almost never talk about peace. And this led us to start asking, well, how could international law perhaps look a bit different if we put peace instead of conflict at the center? And then we moved from that to not just peace, but perhaps, given that we are both sort of committed feminists, a feminist peace. Is that a fair comment, Louise?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the very fact that we were based in the Centre for Women, Peace and Security obviously raised the same questions in respect to the resolutions, the WPS resolutions, because they're ostensibly about women, peace and security. But peace, again, gets lost in that narrative, in that focus, and security dominates. And it's always a state-based or militarized conception of security. And so there's no attempt in any of the resolutions, as far as I'm concerned, to see what is peace. What are we talking about when we talk about peace? Negative peace, positive peace? All of this seems to be missing. And so that kind of was the starting basis.
And just as even more important at the moment, when on the one hand, we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of Resolution 1325, the origins of the Women, Peace and Security. But what we're especially interested in is that that's a very short-sighted notion of seeing the history around these issues of women, peace and security. And what's been especially interesting has been going back and looking at some of the long history of women's activism, at least as far back as 1915, back into the 19th century. And we're finding numerous examples of women involved in resistance to dominant power and authority, to women organizing marches, peace camps, petitioning the League of Nations, petitioning the United Nations, and seeing today's concept of women, peace and security against this long history, and realizing that there has been this constant struggle for peace by women. And as academic international lawyers, where does that fit into our discipline?
And so we all get lost. Women's peace activism, is almost redacted, it's ignored, it's sidelined, it's margined. But then we thought, it's not just history. What can other disciplines also teach us about, how we might re-engage with our own discipline, international law? So we're like wanting to push ourselves, sort of out of the safety net of our own discipline, to learn from others, whether it be IR, history, activism, sort of other professions, to really re-engage with what is our conception of feminist peace. How can we understand international law through a feminist lens, and where might that lead us? So I guess this is where we are 2 years or even 3 years down the road, Christine.
So I guess on that note, with the interdisciplinary perspectives as well, how in the Visions for Peace program are different visions of feminist peace explored?
Well, we've tried to do it in a number of different ways. And I think what we really are trying to emphasize throughout is that this is a conversation. And it's a conversation with us as international lawyers, with a whole range of different people and through different formats. So on the one hand, we've got traditional academic type approaches to the Congress. So we've got a series of panels with different speakers exploring their vision of a feminist peace. And so we've asked international law academics, international law practitioners, people who practice, for example, in the international criminal tribunals, or with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights or for refugees, those who have been experts within international law institutions. So those who've been part of the special procedures of the Human Rights Council, for example. So we're looking at international law sort of academically, institutionally, practically, but then also, and most importantly, in coming back again to this idea of feminist resistance, women peace builders, and women peace builders who in different locales, in different ways, have strived, worked towards bringing peace into their daily lives and thus the daily lives of other people.
Yeah, and then that took us from, our traditional disciplines, activism, to then different expressions of peace, of feminist peace. And we thought, let's be daring and think about performance. And so what we've done is to integrate into this agenda performance through song, poetry, choirs, different disciplines, different approaches, different ways of seeing the world, because the way we see it is that peace is a dynamic process. It's always about a process, and peace also is about performance. And so we thought it was really important to bring that other dynamic into a whole understanding, a new understanding of feminist peace. And we wanted to capture this through different performances.
Which we're really excited about, because again, it's something very different for international lawyers to be looking at these different art forms. And then what we're also trying to center part of the Congress around is a statement, which we've gone through various iterations and various names. It's been called a resolution, it's been called a declaration, it's been called a vision. I think that's where we're at the moment, which is essentially trying to set out and to start a conversation through setting it out, a short number of key demands we think might be central to a vision of a feminist peace. And this, again, go back to the idea of having a conversation. It's certainly not a definitive document. It's very much our ideas that we've now worked on for, a good length of time. And which is varied from being extremely long but then very short. How can we distill it down and to put it out there and to hear other people's responses and to try and open up, continue a conversation around this idea of a vision of a feminist peace. We really don't know where it will end up, but I think what we are all agreed on is that things do have to be different. And that an idea, a vision of feminist peace would certainly be based in something that is different.